Hey everyone, my name's Megan and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today is June 1st, so I thought it's a perfect day to talk about all the books that I read in May, so this is going to be my May wrap-up video. Overall, since we've been in quarantine, I've been reading so much more than I normally can. Usually I'm in school full-time and I'm working full-time, and with that I can only pick up a couple books every month. But this past month, I was actually able to read about 10 books, which is awesome for me. I had 8 physical books and 2 ebooks. Overall, I had a great reading month. I read so many new books and I fell in love with multiple. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started and we'll start talking about those books. So the first book I read was Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. I had to read this for my intro to fiction class for school. I had to read this book and write like 10-page paper on it. It was crazy. So anyways, anytime I have to read a book for school, I tend to not like it so much just because like you're forced to read it. This book was okay. I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. This book is set in the perspective of Teo, who is a Native American who just fought in the war. So you kind of see the perspective of what it's like after the war. We have flashbacks from when he is in the war. He deals with a lot of loss, which is something that is super traumatizing for anyone, obviously. So this story kind of shows his side of what it's like after the fact and what it's like to be Native American and fighting for the country when there is still so much prejudice towards you. This book was something that really opened my eyes up to a topic that I probably would have never delved into. It was definitely interesting at parts, and like I said, I don't really think I would have picked this up if it wasn't for my fiction class, so that was kind of nice. I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. It's not something I would pick up on my own, but I did enjoy it. The next book that I picked up in May, I absolutely adored, and it's From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I love JLA. Her writing is just so addictive to me. I can't even explain it, really. I loved her Lux series, and then when I found out that she was writing a fantasy novel, I was like so excited for it. The story is about a girl who's the maiden, so nobody's supposed to talk to her, nobody's supposed to touch her except for her 2 royal guards. I really don't want to say too much about this novel because I feel like the more that people talk about it, the more it gives up kind of information. So I think it's best to go into this blindly. Just know that it's a fantasy novel. Just know that the romance is beautiful. I can't get over it. I really am at a loss for words. My brain was reeling after reading this. I could not handle it. There's plenty of plot twists, plenty of action, and plenty of romance, and that's really all I need in a good fantasy novel. This book is the first in a series, and they still have not yet announced when the next book's coming out. So I don't know how long we're gonna have to wait for that one, and I'm not sure I can wait much longer if I'm being honest. Jennifer L. Armentrout, you have done it again. This book was 5 out of 5 stars for me. The next book I read in May is In the Afterlight by Alexandra Bracken. This is the 3rd and final book in the Darkest Mind series. This one, I did overall enjoy it. I waited a little bit of time between reading Never Fade and then picking this one up, and I think if I would have picked this one up right after Never Fade, I would have probably liked it a little bit more. It took me some time to get back into this story, and I couldn't really remember like who was what character, what had happened, and that kind of made me realize like, oh, this story isn't as memorable as I probably thought. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a pretty good conclusion to the story. I just kind of felt disconnected from the characters once I got to this one. I didn't really care anymore. But yeah, I still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a great story and I really enjoyed the first book. So overall, gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I gave this series a 4 out of 5 stars. So it wasn't exactly a favorite, but I did enjoy it. The next book I read got all the hype and is still getting all the hype, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as everybody else in the world did. There's a new election coming up. Tensions are high. They hate each other at first. This is an enemies to lovers romance, which if that's your ball game, this is the book for you. Overall, I did like this book. The only complaints I guess I would have, which is just this story, but we're living in such political times right now and politics is really hurting my head, I'm not gonna lie. So reading this book and reading like the politics side of things, I really was not that interested. It took me a little bit of time to get invested into the story and like actually care about what was happening. I ended up finishing the book after drinking a glass of wine and it helped so much. I got so much more into it, but I I don't know. I think that this book is worth the hype. I love the representation. I just would say that the political side of it was kind of what got me, and just getting into it, I just didn't care at first. I was not sucked into this book. I don't know how a lot of people feel about that, but that's why it lost a star for me. So I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, which means that I did overall enjoy it, but it wasn't like a favorite of mine. So yeah. The next book I read was To Be Honest by Maggie Ann Martin. Once again, with some new representation. This is about a plus-size girl. This story, it really hit home for me, if I'm being honest. I really feel like I was reading my perspective from high school. Just some of the thoughts that she had was really on point with how I felt when I was in high school. The nice thing about this book, which I think that a lot of books that feature plus-size characters don't do, is that she actually loves the way she looks. She is comfortable with how she looks. She's not like, oh, I hate my body and blah blah blah. So reading a perspective from a plus-size girl who is comfortable with how she is was really refreshing. She does struggle with her mother being a fanatic about losing weight, so it brings in a lot of topics of discussion. Just some trigger warnings. They aren't like super prominent in this book, but I would advise people. Topics of eating disorders, self-harm, anxiety, panic attacks. Those are all kind of brought up a little bit, so I would be careful, and I wouldn't say steer clear, but go at your own risk if that is something that bothers you. The mother is super set on losing weight, and it isn't exactly in the healthiest way, so that is something that I would warn people of. Overall, I did really enjoy this story. I think it was a really realistic representation of plus size and also anxiety. It wasn't overdone. Nothing was over dramatized. It was just real and raw. And there was a little cute romance in it. So I did enjoy the story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So I read 2 books on my Kindle this month, and the first one was Honeymoon Alone by Nicole McCauley. I got this book through NetGalley to review, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I went into it with really low expectations. I really didn't know what to expect. There's so many honeymoon books out right now. This story had so much more to it than I was expecting. There was actually like some mystery. The romance was not what you were gonna think it was. This book follows our main character who, after her sister's wedding and after being dumped, essentially, takes up the opportunity to go on a honeymoon by herself. She is super sheltered. Even though she is a full-blown adult, she never really has gone off and done anything on her own. And even going on this trip, she didn't tell anyone in her family, and her family was like freaking out about it, even though she's a full-blown adult. I really enjoyed the aspect of this story that was kind of self-discovery and like learning to go off and do things on your own. I really appreciated that side of the story. I adored the romance, I adored the plot, I adored the setting, like just everything about it was just such a cute, nice, sweet read. So I did give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I was kind of debating giving it 4.5. I still kind of might. The only reason that's stopping it from giving a full 5 stars is that it wasn't like mind-blowing, but I did really enjoy the story. The next book I got from NetGalley was Head Over Heels by Hannah Orenstein. This book was my least favorite book that I read this month. I am not about bashing authors or bashing their work. It did have some good qualities to it. I was excited to read it. It's about a gymnast who was up for the Olympics and then had an injury that ruined it. I was really excited for this read. It just kind of fell flat for me. The writing was okay. Like, her writing style was fine. The story had opportunity for it to go somewhere, but I don't know, kind of missed the mark for me. I just felt like the characters were very juvenile, being 27 years old and acting the way that they did. I think they were 27, I can't really remember, but I felt like the characters were very juvenile. The romance just felt so forced and so pushed. It was like every single time that I was like kind of starting to get into it, like something immature and dramatic would happen, and it just like ruined it for me. So overall, I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it had potential, but it just missed the mark for me, and not my thing. Next are the books that absolutely wrecked my whole world, came swooping in and ruined my life. ACOTAR. So this month I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I devoured these books in less than a week, and I'm really upset that they're over and I already want to do a reread. I feel like I'm totally beating the dead horse by talking about this series still because everybody and their grandma has read it and loved it already. I cannot believe I waited this long. I absolutely adored this story. First, starting with A Court of Thorns and Roses, I went into this knowing that people had said it's slow at some points, and honestly, I kind of didn't feel that way. I feel like the slow moments were necessary for the world building and the characters. I really enjoyed this one. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars right away, and I loved it. Y'all, if you have not read A Court of Thorns and Roses already, I don't know what you're doing. After reading the first book, I picked up A Court of Mist and Fury right away, and I went into this book knowing it was everyone's like all-time favorite fantasy. And I'm not gonna lie, for the first half, I was like, I mean, it's good, but I don't get why everyone's like obsessed with this. Once I got about around the halfway mark, my whole world was rocked. This is probably my all-time favorite book. I'm like destroyed after reading this. I don't want to talk too much because obviously it's spoilers if you haven't read the rest of the series, but this was absolutely incredible. Rhysand like absolutely has my heart and I don't think I'm ever gonna recover. We really need like a support group. After I finished A Court of Mist and Fury and cried, I picked up A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I really tried to pace myself reading this book. It is 700 pages. I read it over 3 days, and that was literally because I was trying to pace myself, and in between I had to study for an exam, and I was absolutely consumed by this story at this point, and I don't even have words, y'all. It is such a bad trait to be a reviewer and you don't have words, but like that's really how good this series is. This book, I think, wrapped everything up so well. I know there's still A Court of Frost and Starlight, which I am going to pick up soon, but then there is also more books coming from different perspectives, and I am so pumped for that. I am so excited. I am upset that this is the end of Feyre and Rhysand's story. I just adore them. I cannot get enough of this. I truly cannot. All right, y'all. So that is the end of my May wrap up. I really enjoyed this month. A Court of Thorns and Roses is a new series for me. From Blood and Ash is a new favorite book for me. I really enjoyed a lot of the things that I read this month, and I'm so excited for June. Let me know in the comments what your favorite or maybe least favorite book was that you read this month, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!